Call to order meeting of the Wilsonville City Council on August 16th at 7:10 p.m. Will the city recorder please read the roll call?
Councillor Linville.
Here.
Councillor West.
Here.
Councillor Lehan.
Here.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Here.
And Council President Ockervall is excused.
Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councillor Lehan, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Your Honor, I move to approve the order of agenda.
For a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Now moving to mayor's business. I wanted to recognize the difficulties that many people had regarding the recent heat waves that we just had. And I do appreciate that our library was available. It's a cooling center.
It was.
I understand not too many people made use of it, but it's good that it was there and that we were prepared. And I've seen, there have been a lot of families over at Town Center Park using Morosse Plaza. That's been in full use. And this weather has caused some events to be canceled in the last weekend. I know the Walnut Grove dedication that Councillor Lehan was going to lead was moved.
Yeah.
September 14th, correct? 16. In the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
16th.
Yeah. I was going to speak to that.
I'll let you speak to that later. I don't know. So our next city council meeting will be Thursday, September 9th. It's moved back a few days from the regular first Monday due to the Labor Day holiday. And this is a time when I report on some of the activities that I've been doing in my role as mayor. I attended another Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting, the group is called C4, and we heard a yet another presentation by Oregon Department of Transportation on issues pertaining to tolling the metro area highways, I-5 and I-205, for both revenue generation and traffic congestion management. They brought a number of staff, and in each one of these presentations, they focus often in a different area. This whole concept originated a few years ago with House Bill 2017, which passed and began the study and work. We had considerable discussion and expressions of concern from different cities and mayors regarding equity impacts to lower income individuals and households, and also traffic diversion on local streets. And we heard more about how they would address that. They continue to work through these issues and present their mitigation strategies. And they are developing a list of key local arterials and intersections that have been brought to ODOT's attention by different cities. And they are developing ways to mitigate the fact that if you're tolling these freeways, you may have traffic coming into certain areas, and what are some ways that can be managed for that community. ODOT also convened an Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee for their tolling project, and our city's Smart Transportation Director, Dwight Brashear, participates on that committee. Now, we do have, as I mentioned earlier, ODOT is scheduled to present to the City Council work session on Thursday, September 9th. They plan to address the same topic on proposed tolling of I-5 and I-205 and perhaps some other highways. We have also let ODOT know that we are interested in discussing two additional issues at this meeting. We would like to discuss the French Prairie Bridge as the alternative transportation facility for the I-5 Boone Bridge and seismic improvement project, and we would also like to hear about the I-5 traffic impacts and mitigations for the new 3.8 million square foot, 5-story tall Amazon warehouse that is in planning and development stages in Woodburn. We want to know, that's going to bring a lot of traffic, and how is ODOT responding to that? ODOT also presented at the C4 meeting on proposed projects for the 2024-2027 statewide Transportation Improvement Program, which has the acronym, the STIP. So specific to Wilsonville, ODOT is proposing to do a $9 to $11 million highway modernization project that is a component of that I-5 Boone Bridge seismic improvement project. They plan to build a limited segment northbound auxiliary lane from the Wilsonville-Hubbard cutoff Highway 551 on-ramp to the Miley Road Charbonneau on-ramp to I-5. And so this will be a new extended auxiliary lane that is designed to really improve traffic merging onto I-5 from Highway 551 with more room and distance for merging. And they anticipate this will result in better flow of traffic, fewer highway accidents just south of the I-5 Boone Bridge. So that is a good thing. In effect, Highway 551 is the I-599E connector, and it brings an entire new lane of traffic onto I-5. So that actually will bring us more traffic, and there is no new lane for that traffic. So this new ODOT extended auxiliary lane will improve traffic flow and safety. However, it is not new highway capacity. So all of this demonstrates the importance of public transit as being a viable transportation option. Just wanted to bring that up for commuting, getting to medical appointments, running errands, and shopping. And so we're glad we do have SMART for that. And just to recap, it's SMART transportation is free in-town transit service, and we have routes to Salem, Canby, Tualatin, and more. And then just a couple of other things that I've been doing. I did have two separate meetings with two of the Clackamas County commissioners. I met with Commissioner Sonia Fisher and Martha Schrader, and we discussed housing issues, services for unhoused people and unsheltered people, and transportation issues. We also discussed the activities around the Aurora Airport that we discussed earlier. I also attended a Metropolitan Mayor's Consortium meeting and discussed some of those same topics. I think that's all that I have to report. I did want to point out, though, the Parks and Recreation booklet that just came out with all the classes. I want to draw people's attention to that. There are lots of great things that are being offered right now, and if Council President Ockervall were here, she would probably tell us more about them. I didn't bring that book with me, I don't think, but I want to just draw attention to that as a great set of offerings. So with that, we will move to our communication.
Mayor, before you move on, I believe you selected some names for the
Yes, I did miss that. Just a minute.
City Committee.
77.
Just a second. I do have one more item on mayor's business. Thank you. So at this point, I wanted to point out that we have two openings on the Kitakata Sister City Advisory Board, and I am asking for ratification of two appointments, and I have given the information to Councilor Lehan, if you would like to make the motion to appoint Kevin Stewart and Shruti Menon.
Yes, Your Honor, I move to ratify the appointment of Kevin Stewart to the Kitakata Sister City Advisory Board for a term beginning 8/16/2021 and ending 12/31/2021.
No. Right? Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded as motion read by Councilor Lehan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0.
Your Honor, I also move to ratify the appointment of Shruti Menon to the Kitakata Sister City Advisory Board, excuse me, for a term beginning 8/16/2021 and ending 12/31/2023.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Your Honor, I just wanted to point out that in the appointment list that you submitted out to the council, that those dates were
Correct.
different.
This is correct.
Oh, that is correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for noticing that. So I would like to now go to the communications section of our agenda and invite Mr. Ottenad and Mr. Leo to present. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Mark Ottenad, Public and Government Affairs Director, and with me tonight is...
My name is Greg Leo, for the record. Greg Leo with the Leo Company, Government Affairs Consultant to the city.
Thank you. Tonight we're going to give you a brief presentation on the 2021 legislative session and some of the results that we had there. So we will start off right so here.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to say what a great honor it is to work with the city of Wilsonville at the Oregon legislature. And without further ado, we're gonna, in 19 slides, tell you what happened in the Oregon legislature. We have 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go quickly through this and then we'll have some time for questions afterwards. So I'm getting my timer set here to make sure we use our time efficiently here. The first thing I want to point out is kind of how we work. Everything we do on your behalf in Salem is part of a city council approved legislative agenda. So as you recall, in February, you passed the legislative agenda, and that is the guiding document for everything that we do in Salem. We generally oppose unfunded mandates and the preemption of city authority. That is just the cardinal touch point. We want you at the local level to make the decisions. How I work in Salem is, and basically now by Zoom, this last session mostly, was weekly meetings with the League of Oregon Cities staff. So once a week, I'm meeting with my colleagues from all the other league cities and the league staff. And then we have a metro government lobby team. So really all the governments that are in the Portland metro area get together once a week to go over basically the bills. Also, I go to the Oregon Economic Development Association lobby team to hear about economic development issues. All of this is to communicate and coordinate, generally put ourselves in sync with other local governments. Important aspect of what we do is the work with our local legislators. We need to understand them, know their priorities, know how the city of Wilsonville fits into their priorities. I work with other lobbyists to share information and develop strategy. Let me just say that in Salem, local government lobbying is a team effort. And finally, to stay current with issues important to the city of Wilsonville's interests, you will always see us as, looking at the city council meetings. We attend virtually, and we're basically tracking what you're talking about here so we can represent you well in Salem. So here's a copy of our 2021 state legislative agenda. You're familiar with it. I'm sure it's also in the packet. Next slide. Our team, Mark Ottenad is our Government Affairs Director and quarterback. I report to Mark. Rachel Leo and I are the Leo Company. Rachel's a really good researcher. Basically, I attend the meetings and she keeps me informed of all the things I need to know. So we do, in addition to our coordination work with LOC in the lobby, we do strategy development, and we are subject matter experts in the legislative process. So we know how the process works, where you can affect it, how do you make your voice heard basically in Salem. I'd like to thank Mayor Fitzgerald for being just a great spokesperson for the city. Everything that we write is in her name, and she is really giving the testimony for the city and the city council. So the city council, you make the policy, the mayor gives the testimony, I make sure things run correctly working with Mark. work. So that's essentially how we work. And I want to thank especially the subject matter experts at the city manager, the city attorney, and all the city department managers. From time to time, they are called on to come to Salem, to come down and work on land use bills, on things according to housing, water policy. We have a superb staff here who tend to be seen in Salem as really experts in their areas. So I'm not shy about bringing them down into the process. Top legislative priority, the I-5 Boone Bridge, the seismic improvement program. We made some significant progress on this. So on this slide, you can see I have some stoplights here. So the green is good progress moving ahead. Yellow is cautionary. I don't think there's any reds here, but that's my little device. I am guilty of death by PowerPoint, so we're trying to make this graphical here. So the Oregon Transportation Commission reallocated $3.7 million in March to advance the next phase. House Bill 3055 has moved us into a top tier priority along with the Rose Quarter, the Abernathy Bridge, allocated $30 million per year to assist in the development of those plans. That is not tolling money. To build these, however, ODOT is telling us tolling will be part of it. So tolling is an ongoing discussion. We have a very complete letter on tolling in the packet. So that explains our tolling policy. Of course, the Aurora Airport is a major priority, key city objective. The Oregon Department of Aviation has authorized a new master plan in July. This is going to be a 2-year process. It's currently under review by the Oregon Department of Justice, and we don't really know all the aspects of how that's going to move forward. This is really an evolving issue, and so I'm giving this a yellow light because frankly, there's going to be some more developments. The Arpa request, we had a great opportunity where each of our House members were allocated $2 million and our Senate members allocated $4 million to do projects of interest to their districts. We teamed up with the city of Sherwood and requested and received $1.665 million in legislative directed ARPA money to expand the Sherwood broadband into this GovRing process. So you can see the money there. The Willamette Falls Locks was a big success. This is a public corporation, much like the State Fair or the Oregon Health Sciences, which will establish governance for the locks. This allows for the transfer of the locks from the Corps of Engineers to this authority. And then it authorized through lottery bonds $7 million to get the locks progress going. Federal funding is a question, and the business model remains kind of an open question about how do you pay the operating costs long term. You can see at each one of these slides, I reference the bill numbers.
Sorry about that. I skipped up. Let me go back.
We good? Okay.
Oh, hold on a second. That's that.
Okay, so hazardous algal blooms, you know, have been a great problem for the city. Frankly, you look at the river tonight, you can see there is greenness in the river that does not look too healthy. We helped define the project. Like to throw a big thanks out to Delora Kerber for participating in the work group, did a fantastic job. We needed to get ozone recognized. We have now got DEQ recognition of ozone as a treatment process. The DEQ testing lab has been established. So you remember during the hazardous algal bloom incident, we had to send city staff to Seattle to get things tested. Now it's in-state testing, so that's good. Wilsonville's water plant is a model for how you can treat HABs, and that's because we have ozone. We built ozone into our plant from the get-go, and so The city of Salem has just received a large amount of funding for redeveloping theirs, and guess what? They have ozone. So I think the city of Wilsonville has been a leader in water treatment and how we, deal with this emerging problem of hazardous algal blooms. Next slide. The 1995 legislature changed a definition in law about water allocation from transfer to allocation. So there was a need to correct that language in order to allow the transfer of water rights in the Willamette River water system. This is important because we're going to have additional pressure on how do you allocate water in the future to agricultural, municipal, and fish needs. And so this is an emerging issue. We did make progress this session in terms of getting the legal question resolved and also getting $1 million for a study of increased water allocation in the river. So long-term climate issues are going to show that there's going to be increased demand, and supply of good water is always going to be an issue, I think, in the future. Moving forward, recycling modernization, huge bill at the legislature. This bill reforms the recycling system. As you know, it's incredibly confusing for people to know how to sort the recycling. The chasing arrows on your plastics are almost impossible to understand. This bill reorganizes and modernizes the recycling system. The most important concept here is the idea of producer responsibility, where businesses, when they sell recyclable materials, will contribute into a fund which will help pay for the recycling of these materials. Additional studies are commissioned. This is a multi-step process, but I think there's a very big step forward that was done this session. This will impact the city of Wilsonville's municipal waste collection. Next slide. The wipes legislation was a big win for us. I want to throw a thank you out to Odessa Ackerval, who was our excellent presenter. She gave testimony both before the House and the Senate. This is important to our waste processing in that the supposedly flushable wipes are really not degradable, and they end up clogging our pipes, and you can see the picture there of the Public Works people pulling that out of the system. So we want to reduce these wipes going into our system. Odessa had a great presentation, Save Your Pipes, Don't Flush Wipes. At the lobby meeting afterwards, the other lobbyists asked me if they could borrow her for their issue the next time they needed a presentation. So excellent job, Odessa. Housing was a very big issue during this legislature. The leadership committed to doing whatever they could to increase housing stocks. And so affordable housing on public lands passed. We gave excellent technical assistance to the Senate President and the folks working on this. And we did have a lot of communication from Miranda and Dan and Kim of our planning department to make sure that this was workable for cities. So we worked cooperatively with the league on this. Vertical housing, I think you probably have seen a lot of this, but there was some clarification about the vertical housing issue. Transit-oriented housing, we're interested in doing that. We do not need additional legislative authority to do what we think we need to do there. And just want to throw a big shout out to our planning staff, who was super helpful on this. The UGB expansion issue, there was a proposal to expand the UGB in order to provide workforce housing. We felt that it was not an appropriate bill, and that it basically put people out at the urban edge where they couldn't access services, et cetera. And it was really driven about specific pieces of land rather than overall policy. Wilsonville and Sherwood were specifically mentioned. We defeated this bill. We testified against it, and it was defeated. Next slide. System development charges is a yellow here. It's a work in progress. There's going to be a major interim study on SDCs. There was an effort to shift the payment of SDCs from the time of permit issuance to the ended the process with the final inspection. We worked with a number of other cities to stop that amendment. Once that amendment was stopped, the bill creating this interim study passed. And so there's going to be a lot more coming out on this. We're looking for more detailed information to come out. So yellow light on system development charges. Next slide. Remote access to public meetings. What we've been doing during the COVID period about having a mixture of in-person, in the room, and virtual public meetings has now been codified in the law. So it solves a lot of problems, especially for people from rural parts of the state who might drive for, 6 hours to get to Salem to give 3 minutes of testimony before a committee. This is a practical approach that basically encourages public participation in public processes. So those COVID-related temporary changes were made permanent, and this will be the kind of new normal as it comes to open meetings. Next slide.
It should be pointed out, this will apply to city council and urban renewal agency board meetings only here at the city.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. The redistricting issue is about ready to get very active. There's a special session called for the 20th September. They have until the 20th or 27th of September to redraw the redistricting plan. The census data has just been made available, and you can go online tonight on OLS and look to see the software about where this population is. The new congressional seat, we're not sure where that's going to be. That's one of the big questions. But it'll have 81,265 people in it. They do this down to the person. It's pretty amazing how they do it. The Senate seats will have 138,000 people, and the House seats 69,000. So for us, what it means, and we have some excellent testimony that's already been submitted, is that our district, we have got a population growth, and we'll probably get a bigger portion of at least our state House district. So we're going to work this very closely in September. Next slide. Okay, so trends, challenges, opportunities, need more information. First of all, I'd just like to give a short commercial about the book. I mean, this policy book has pretty much all of the 60 issues that we track closely, and I think you'll find it as a good resource. The appendix is especially interesting because it has all of our testimony, and you can see what we've said about what issues, et cetera. So please use this as an ongoing reference. I would say trend-wise, it's going to be more virtual. We're not coming back to the Capitol for at least another 2 years, in that they have major restorations going on. So basically, it's going to continue to be virtual, I think. In terms of challenges, we have a historic opportunity with federal money right now, and it's not going to last forever, but now is a good time to do legacy projects where we can apply and get federal money. And I think that's a great opportunity. When you need more information on this, if it's not in the book, call me and I will research it. Rachel and I have all this stuff at our fingertips, and we work at getting information on specific bills all the time. And I just want to say what an honor it is to, coordinate your legislative program in Salem and to work with Mark and especially your team of great managers here at the city of Wilsonville. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to present to the council.
That was a very fast-paced and information-rich report, and we have a lot of information to read. Does anybody have an additional comment or question? Councilor Linville?
Can you turn your mic on?
Oh, I can turn my mic on. Sorry. I appreciate the volume of the material. I think that was part of the challenge, was to see if we could get through all of it. So it certainly was comprehensive. Two items that came to my mind, which I've already discussed with Mr. Leo, and that is that, as I recall, and I may be incorrect, but in our packets previously, we had copies of the mayor's correspondence testimony letters that were sent on specific bills. And it would be nice to have those in real time rather than kind of at the end. And the reason I guess I'm saying that is that it would give me the opportunity to have some talking points
That's
on
good. We should
current issues.
regularly send those out.
Yeah, that would be helpful to me. And then the other would be providing periodic real-time updates on current legislation that is impacting us, that we need to, kind of keep an eye on or, be aware of. While I appreciate it all here at the end as a summary, it would have been helpful or maybe a little easier to digest had it been periodic through the session. So, but thank you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I know it's a big challenge.
Thank you.
Well, I would just say I thought it was a very comprehensive report, and I spent a bunch of time reading it this afternoon, and appreciate being kept up to speed on this many things.
And it really does move fast. I also served during the session as on the executive committee and the Metropolitan Mayor's Commission. We met every Friday afternoon, and they said it was going to be for half an hour. It would be like 2 hours, and it was incredible. You'd hear about something really fast. So I think maybe next year we could find a place to just have a checklist that keeps running, and maybe we update it or something like that, like the bills we're tracking. And then when there's something new, you could go to that. Maybe we just distribute something like that.
Doesn't OLS let you do that? You can just get updates on bills you care about, and it will send you like it's this part of the process. Am I right?
Yeah, Mayor Fitzgerald, Councilor West, you should, and just call me. I mean,
Right, we'll set something up like that.
We're here in real time working on this, so.
And a lot of the cities in the Metropolitan Mayor's Commission were dealing with some things that didn't affect us too, like some who have different functions going on, different issues. But thank you for Mark or Mr. Ottenhead and Mr. Leo for your report and for being so on deck all through the session.
We
I'm
appreciate it
personally
very
glad
much.
it's over.
Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight.
Thank you. And that brings us to citizen input and community announcements. And this is an opportunity for visitors to address the city council on items not on the agenda. It's also the time to address items that are on the agenda but are not scheduled for a public hearing. Staff and the city council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens' input before tonight's meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and use the raise hand feature on Zoom to let us know if you'd like to provide comments. Do we have any cards? Any persons?
Your Honor, I have for the public hearing, but not for public comment.
Not for this part.
Yes, for ordinance 849.
Okay.
Is there anybody in Zoom? Nobody in Zoom.
Okay. We will now move to councilor comments, liaison reports, and meeting announcements, and I will start with Councilor Lehan.
Yes, I would say this has been a challenging week or so, last week or so, with the heat, which impacted a number of city things. But one of them that I did attend the National Night Out in my neighborhood, but I was going to ask the city manager if you could fill in how many night outs did we have going on?
I believe we visited 7 in total. Is that right? Yeah, there were 7. What's that? 8.
8, see?
One of them was in Charbonneau, and Councilor Linville was there as well, so.
Yeah. So that's a lot of night outs on a very hot evening.
Yes.
But I was surprised how many neighbors were out and having a good time regardless of the heat. And then I was fortunate enough to attend the staff picnic on last Thursday, Wednesday, whenever it was.
Was
Wednesday, probably.
Wednesday, yeah.
Again, a very toasty event, but we had shade and it was a lot of fun. Now, the other event I had scheduled was the Walnut dedication at Morosse Park. And that was scheduled for last Thursday, and it was supposed to be 108. And then as it got closer, they said only 106. But nonetheless, we decided to pull the plug on it because it was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had a number of a couple of people in their 90s scheduled to be there, and it just didn't seem like a good idea to press forward. And as it turned out, of course, it was only 105. So we probably could have gone ahead, but nonetheless, it has been postponed. So now you have yet another opportunity to put this on your schedule for September 16th, which is a Thursday at 11 a.m. So we're hoping it will not be roasting hot because it's September and it's at 11 in the morning. So do join us at Morosse for the Walnut dedication. This is a state heritage tree dedication, so there'll be people coming from all over the state for the state, from the Heritage Tree Committee, the State Heritage Tree Committee. And then my last thing I was going to mention is I have this little button on, which is called a cockade, and this is in recognition of women's suffrage, which is coming up. The celebration is coming up on August 26th, and so that's what that is for. They used to wear little things like this to show that they were in agreement for women's suffrage. And I also did an event last Saturday in Newburgh at the Fernwood Cemetery for a whole bunch of people who were there for a historical pioneer gathering, and I wore it to that because they had a lot of people in costume who were also involved in the suffragette issue. So that's all I had to say about that.
Okay, and Councilor West?
I was not here the last meeting. I was vacationing with the family on a little summer vacation, which was wonderful. I want to give everyone a heads up. Wilsonville football is in full swing. The boys are practicing right now as we are in this meeting. And if you guys haven't been to a Friday night football game at Wilsonville, it's one of the most epic, fun community events in the entire region. We pack a few thousand people at Randall Stadium. You might see me and some other guys out there roasting hot dogs for everybody. The school band gets out there. All that tradition is there. It's a lot of fun. Our young athletes are quite talented and quite successful in all the different sports in Wilsonville High School and even in the junior high level. But I want to give everybody a heads up. The first game, if you can't make it, that's okay, because it's in Pendleton, is oh, wait, I'm sorry, 9-3, that's a Friday night. That's versus Lebanon. That's the first home game, and that's the first game of the season. And then the next game is 9-10 that next Friday in Pendleton. That's away. That's okay if you can't make that one. But if you haven't been to a game, November 3rd, go see the Wildcats play. And it's something that our family's quite engaged in and love, and the programs are great, and it's a great way to get up with your neighbors and have a good time. So Friday nights, Wilsonville football.
September
Check it out.
3rd, correct?
September 3rd.
Okay.
If anybody on the council wants to, like, we could go, it'd be kind of
I'm out
fun.
of town that day, but I will get to one very soon.
Okay, we can get some seats or something as a city. I don't know, it'd be fun. Anyways, go Wildcats.
Thank you. Councilor Linville?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have just a couple of things. I participated in a workshop that was 3 days long on city planning in Oregon. And I have to say that that was really of great benefit to me. And just a few little kernels that I wanted to give that I took away from in addition to some issues about land use and city planning, they're really focused a lot on our decision-making as both council and planning commission folks. And they emphasized that our role was to make decisions that are good, defensible, and credible. And that we should be coming from a place of looking at decisions that do the most good for the most people for the longest period of time. And I thought that was really good advice rather than to be in a real narrow focus. They went over decision-making, the different types of decision-making, administrative, ministerial, and quasi-judicial. They spent nearly the last entire session on ethics and talking about defining ex parte, a conflict of interest and bias in decision-making. And they also talked about the law of necessity, where when there are conflicting issues, that the thing that takes precedence is the need to make a decision. And so sometimes we may be in that position where the law of necessity takes over because it's imperative that we make the decision. And I just wanted to, one of the resources that they provided was a PDF file on a document that's called An Introductory Guide to Land Use Planning for Small Cities and Counties in Oregon. And I would be happy to share that if you would be interested in it. And then I also have the slides from all of the day's presentations if you would be interested in those as well.
That's great. Put
My,
on by LOC?
it was put on by LOC, and
League of Oregon Cities, yeah.
it was really, I think, well
Thank you
worth,
for
and I got a certificate of completion.
Thank you for spending your time on that.
Going to go in my vitae, in my file. But it was a very worthwhile, and if it comes up again, I think it helped me really kind of get a better sense of planning for the C4 Metro Subcommittee. Meeting has been canceled, and I really don't have, I hate to say this, but I don't have other meetings between now and our next council meeting, so thank you.
Councilor Linville, I'm going to speak out of order a little bit, because I did just learn today that Councilor Linville and I share the duty on some of the Clackamas County meetings, whereas you go to the C4 subcommittee, they have all these long names, and I go to the C4 meeting. Tomorrow, they are having a work session for the C4 meeting, and this just came up. And I'd like to invite you to go to that with me if you're available.
Is it Zoom?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Oh, I will.
Zoom, and it's about transportation funding, and it seems to be quite a pressing issue that...
I would be able to do that if you'll just give me the...
Okay, I'll send that, and that just kind of came up the last 2 days.
You know what time it is?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, okay.
So there's another meeting.
There, thank you. I needed that.
Congrats.
Yep.
Yep, just a lucky strike. So thank you very much. So now we will move to the consent agenda, and will the city attorney please read the agenda?
Resolution number 2917, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to execute a construction manager general contractor contract with Kiewit Infrastructure West Company to provide pre-construction services for the Willamette River Water Treatment Plant Expansion Project. Resolution number 2918, a resolution authorizing SMART to enter into an agreement with Northwest Natural Gas to provide high-pressure gas services at 28879 Southwest Boberg Road. Resolution number 2923, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the sole source selection of Friends of Trees for fiscal year 2021-2022. And finally, minutes of the August 2, 2021 City Council meeting.
Your Honor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We will now go to our public hearing for ordinance 849. This is the first reading of the legislative hearing.
Ordinance number 849, on first reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving a single property urban renewal plan for economic development purposes known as the Twist Bioscience Wilsonville Investment Now WIN Zone.
I'm now going to call to order the public hearing. Wilsonville City Council public hearing on ordinance number 849 on first reading has been read. Ladies and gentlemen, the City Council will be taking public testimony tonight during the public hearing. The hearing will be conducted in the following manner. City staff will present a report. Testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor nor against the proposed ordinance. Although City Council meetings are open to the public, this meeting may also be attended remotely in accordance with Oregon law. Information regarding how the public can attend this meeting remotely and give testimony is posted at City Hall and on the city's website. Notice was given that testimony could be submitted for the record in advance in writing by emailing or mailing it to the city recorder. Testimony may be submitted in writing anytime prior to the closure of the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no further testimony in any form will be accepted. If you want to participate in this meeting remotely when the time for public testimony is called, please raise your right hand feature in Zoom and press *9 on your telephone if you'd like to testify, or if you'd like to notify the city recorder you wish to submit written testimony. If you are having difficulties with these instructions, you may call 1-669-900-6833, and when prompted, enter webinar ID 815-3605-6468. Both numbers are shown on the screen. When called upon to testify, state your full name and address for the record. I request from those providing testimony not to repeat testimony that has already been given to the City Council. Simply indicating that you agree with the prior testimony given by a speaker you identify is sufficient. If you wish to submit written testimony when called upon, email your testimony to the city recorder, who will provide copies to the City Council. Mr. Namsu, thank you for being here to present your report.
Thank you, Mayor Fitzgerald, members of the City Council. I'm Chris Namsu. I'm the city's Community Development Director, and it's a pleasure tonight to present to you ordinance number 849, which is adoption of the Twist Bioscience Wilsonville Investment Now Zone, which is a site-specific urban renewal area that's being established for economic development purposes. Joining me this evening on the Zoom link is Nick Papanuk of Tiberius Solutions. Nick and the project team together have come up with the Wilsonville plan and report.
Just gonna share your screen.
Oh, I failed.
No, you did great. I turned it off earlier. Just go ahead and keep going.
Oh, you took me away.
Well, I needed the public comment information up there. You're good to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Okay, I believe I'm good again. Thank you very much, Council, for your patience while I muddle through. Nick is on the Zoom call, and we also have a couple of representatives from Twist Bioscience.
it appears that I've got Mitch Romero, who's one of the architects, who's out of Olympia, Washington, and following my presentation, Ms. Angela Bidding, who's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs with Twist, is going to give you a specific presentation. You'll find her description of what Twist does to be far superior than anything that I could do, and I've attempted to try to explain this to you, but what they do is very unique. It's very special, and somebody like Angela is an expert at being able to explain the unique product types and the technology that's actually happening with Twist Bioscience. And they are bringing what is being referred to as the factory of the future to Wilsonville, investing $70 million in an existing building that has been vacant for a long time. They've signed a lease for 190,000 square feet in the Parkway Woods Center, which was formerly the Tektronic Center, more recently known as the Xerox Center, and now even like more recently being referred to as the Park Works facility. So I don't know what name to go with anymore because we all come with different familiarity to the site, but I think we all know where it is. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a background. This WIN program, this is a little bit of the background and history. This builds on the 2013 TIF zone, which is tax increment financing zone. If you recall, we had 6 specific tax increment financing zones. Those zones were established by City Council in order to incentivize economic investment. Coming out of the recession in 2009, 2010, we established this. We had over 2 million square feet of existing vacant warehouse space that was declining in value, and we were very concerned as a community that some of our largest industrial assets were actually declining in value. So we came up with an idea to try to incentivize investment in those existing buildings. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the program was never taken advantage of, and all 6 of those sites filled on their own. They filled organically, but they didn't fill with the kind of job creation and investment in equipment and machinery that we aspired to with the TIF zone program. So we, when we expired those in 2019, the council asked us to think about a new program and bring something forward. So we engaged with Nick and Jordan Vance and Elaine Howard, and we came forward with a redesigned program that we coined as the Wilsonville Investment Now, or the WIN program. We reconvened the Urban Renewal Agency Task Force, who had provided guidance on the 6 TIF zones, and they added tremendous value to our process. They gave us ideas to include criteria in the application for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they also came up with criteria and recommended that we include business retention and expansion criteria, both of which are factors that are in the application as a result of the Urban Renewal Task Force's input. So Twist Bioscience is an existing company out of San Francisco, and again, they're investing $70 million and bringing 200 new jobs to Wilsonville within their first year of operation. On June 7th, the agency entered into a development agreement between the Urban Renewal Agency and Twist Bioscience, outlining the general parameters of the agreement, what it was we were going to do as far as considering providing a tax rebate to the company. The Urban Renewal Agency initiated a site-specific urban renewal zone, 4.4 acres at the Parkway Woods Center on June 21st. And on June 22nd, staff forwarded the urban renewal plan and report to our taxing districts and initiated the 45-day notification consistent with state statute under urban renewal. And then on July 14th, Nick and myself went to the Planning Commission, and there was a public hearing conducted before the Planning Commission that was essentially gathering input on the proposal and the determination of compliance with the city's comprehensive plan. The 3 areas where we had applicable criteria in the comprehensive plan include citizen engagement, economic development, and industrial development. So we're here tonight to establish the last step in the process, which is creation of the Ordinance 849, adoption of Ordinance 849, which will officially finalize the creation of the 4.4 acre urban renewal area. A map of the urban renewal districts in the city. Just high level, the area on the west side of the city is the west side urban renewal area. It's 411 acres, and that's been guiding development in the Villebois area and has resulted in a number of off-site improvements and oversized infrastructure being built that serve the Villebois community. Our oldest district is the year 2000 district. That's 449 acres in area. It's represented in blue on the map. Both the year 2000 and the west West Side URA are both anticipated to sunset here in the next 5 years. Both of those will be coming to a close. There's still one project remaining in the Villebois area plan, which is the Brown Road urban upgrade. And our most recent district can be seen on the north end of the city in the Coffee Creek urban renewal area, which is 258 acres in size. And by comparison, you'll notice this very small purple dot, essentially a dot where my cursor is located. That is the Twist Bioscience wind zone of 4.4 acres, just to give you a comparison with our existing districts, order of magnitude. And the size is so small that our taxing districts were quite comfortable with the establishment and creation of this district based on how small the district was. This is a zoom in on the site itself. The building itself is the district. It literally follows the walls of the leased space of Twist Bioscience and the 190,000 square feet that they will be occupying in the Wilsonville community. Again, I will skip trying to explain the processes that they undertake, and I'll look to Angela, who's going to follow me, to really go into some detail on that, and Angela is going to be available to answer any specific questions you have about the operations of Twist. And they are bringing 200 new jobs. These are well-paying jobs, and she has some information on the types of jobs and the salaries of those jobs, and staff was very interested in learning more about that. So between our last meeting and this meeting, we now have a pretty good handle on the grades of jobs, when they roll out over the course of their fiscal year, which is between like January and September. They roll on a fiscal year of September. So we've got a table of the number of people that will be employed and a rough idea of what grades those levels will be over that 9-month period that Ms. Bidding will be sharing with you as part of her presentation. So again, I forwarded all the draft plan and reports consistent with statute, initiating the 45-day notice on June 22nd, followed up with the taxing entities on August 5th, providing them with the final plan and report that's included in the council packet. We have not received any written comments from any of the taxing districts, and none of the districts requested briefings from staff on the proposal. And our two largest districts, which is the fire district and the school district, both had conversations with city staff and both provided favorable comments suggesting that this was an appropriate use of urban renewal, and given the size of the district, it was not a concern to them from a finance standpoint. And then the Planning Commission hearing was on July 14th. They forwarded you a 7-0 unanimous recommendation that the proposal does comport with the applicable provisions of the comprehensive plan, and we are in our second public hearing. There was a hearing at the Planning Commission, and we're having one tonight. This hearing tonight was advertised in the Spokesman. It was posted in numerous locations throughout the community and went to over 4,97070 households throughout the city. As a result of that massive notification that went out by city staff, I've received 11 emailed comments. I received no phone calls, and nobody asked to speak to me in the last week about this particular issue. Two of the comments were neutral, 4 were neutral, 2 were in favor, and 5 were opposed. And then I just want to point out that there's a lot of activity at the site. We have the property owner SKB, who's been doing land use applications to accommodate some exterior modifications for Twist, some parking lot modifications, and some tree removals occurring. And they were some administrative review modifications to the DRB approval, which is a fairly routine part of our process. And additional notifications went out to everybody within 250 feet of the property boundary. And folks in the Canyon Creek neighborhood received that notice. And on very short notice, Ms. Bidding and her team, including Dr. LaProust, who's the president, chief executive officer of the company, attended a neighborhood meeting on July 28th in an attempt to try to share the specific operations of the company, try to answer any and all questions that the community had. That was a long meeting. There was about 20 folks that were on that, and I think by the end, most folks had their questions answered for the most part. Moving on here, and the statement on the operations that I received from Twist is that none of their products are alive. There were concerns at the neighborhood level about live virus and things along those lines. There's no live virus at the facility. There are no plans for live virus. Ms. Bidding can speak to this in more detail. They don't have biological hazardous materials at the site. There is an outdoor tank. However, it contains liquid nitrogen, which is a fairly routine material that we find in our industrial zone. And it's what's considered a completely closed system. So any waste that's generated by the business is completely captured and processed outside the city of Wilsonville. And they will not, at this point, even be looking like they'll need an industrial pre-treatment permit from the city, which means they'd be flushing some sort of industrial waste down the sanitary sewer system. At this point, their effluent looks normal, just like a residence, and they don't have anything that's triggering the need for an industrial pre-treatment permit from our Public Works Department. But that coordination is obviously going to be ongoing. But that was good news as well regarding the company's discharge. So I've got Nick here. I'm going to ask him to unmic himself. When we get into the numbers, I want to just rely on Nick for the numbers because he's my numbers man and he knows that side of this project inside and out. So Nick, would you be so kind as to do the next two, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. So these are the projected tax revenues for the wind zone. This is a conservative projection, so it's possible the tax revenues paid by Twist will be higher than what we're showing here. And if that's the case, then the amount of the rebate would also be higher than what we're showing here. It's also important to keep in mind that the parameters of the wind zone program does mean that the actual rebate amount each year will be based on the actual taxes received by the Urban Renewal Agency and not tied to these original projections. So these are for context only. They are to help set expectations for what we anticipate will be received and paid out in the coming years, but these do not dictate the actual amount of rebate payments in the future. We know that Twist is planning to invest $70 million into this property. That's a mix of improvements to the physical building itself, as well as new machinery and equipment to be located on the site. From that improvement value, we're anticipating an increase in assessed value in the area of $48.7 million. The reason there's a discrepancy between those is because not necessarily all of the improvements in the building itself will translate to an increase in assessed value of the building. And for improvements that do increase the assessed value, it's possible that this site will be locally assessed by the county assessor. When that happens, not dollar for dollar comes onto the tax rolls. Instead, it is about 62% of the investment amount that actually comes onto the tax rolls. So that's for investments in the building itself that are locally appraised by the county assessor. If this conservative projection comes true with $48.7 million of an increase in assessed value, we are anticipating that Twist would have a property tax bill in its first year after construction's complete of $955,000. Of those $955,000 in taxes, $604,000 would go to the urban renewal area. The difference between that is because urban renewal in the state of Oregon only collects property tax revenues from permanent rate levies. So any of the local option levies, in particular the school district's local option levy, and any outstanding general obligation bonds, those are not subject to the wind zone. They would not be collected by the urban renewal area. Any taxes paid for that local option levy or GO bonds would go to the taxing districts that are imposing them. So that means folks like the school district with a local option levy would benefit immediately and wouldn't need to wait for the 7-year rebate program to be completed before they start to see some of the benefits of this new construction. And then of that $604,000 that's collected by the urban renewal area, the program sets aside up to 10% of that for the city to keep for administrative expenses. So that's $60,000, and the remainder would be what the rebate goes to Twist. And again, the rebate amount or the total taxes to the urban renewal area, that's $604,000, that is approximately 63% of the total taxes that Twist would be paying, that $955,000 number. The next slide shows these projected revenues over time. What we see here, the gray bar for those 7 years, is the amount of the rebate that we anticipate would be going to Twist. In this scenario, again, our conservative projection shows that those revenues would be going down each year. How much those revenues might change from year to year depends on the amount of appreciation of the land and building value that Twist has there compared to the depreciation of the machinery and equipment that Twist has on site. So in this conservative forecast, we are anticipating fairly rapid depreciation in value of the machinery and equipment that's on site, and that's why you see that declining amount of taxes paid each year. But you can see that after a number of years, all of that machinery and equipment value has depreciated to zero, and at that point you do see increases steadily into the future as those building and improvement values on site do continue to appreciate over time. One thing not captured here is the fact that many industrial businesses continue to invest in new pieces of machinery and equipment on site over time. As technology improves, they want to have the latest state-of-the-art technology for their operations. And so any future investment in machinery and equipment on site is not captured in these numbers and could contribute to additional taxes beyond what is shown here. And you can see the dotted line in the middle there. That is the 7-year time frame for this rebate program. And after that point in time, you can see the colored bars showing the dramatic increase in tax revenue that will be experienced by the county, city, school district, and other taxing districts that apply here. So I think that summarizes our financial projections for this wind zone. I'll turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. And so that wraps up the staff presentation on this. And Nick and I are happy to try to answer any questions at this juncture. And if you don't have questions for me, I think we'll ask Ms. Bidding to go next and talk about the project from the company's perspective.
Okay, does anyone have a question at this point, or should we move on to Ms. Bidding? We'll proceed. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bidding, you're good to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, council members and Mayor Fitzgerald for having me. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. If you want to stop sharing, I'd love to share my screen.
Okay. Just 1 second, please.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're off to the races. So my name is Angela Bidding, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Twist Biosciences. Chris mentioned I have been working with Twist Bioscience for the last 7 years. Twist was founded in 2013. So tonight what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about who Twist is and what Twist plans to do in Wilsonville, and then any questions, I'm here to answer them. We're headquartered in South San Francisco, and we've grown very, very rapidly over the course of the last 8 years. We're about 660 employees worldwide. Most of those are based in South San Francisco. We are looking to expand to Wilsonville because we are running up against manufacturing production issues. We are running into capacity in South San Francisco, and we believe Wilsonville is a very good fit. I'll tell you more about our products, but overall, our products enable responsible research across a wide range of fields, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We do have 4 guiding principles that are the core of our foundation and all of our employees embrace. So that's grit, impact, service, and trust. When we were founded in 2013, our vision was to make synthetic DNA to improve health and sustainability. I want to stop there for a minute because synthetic DNA has the same sequence as the DNA in your body, but it is not alive. So there is a big differentiating factor between synthetic DNA and the DNA that is in your cells. We work in service of our customers who are changing the world for the better, so we don't make the end products, we make the products for our customers to make additional products. We make synthetic DNA and in making synthetic DNA, we're not doing anything different than has been done in the last 40 years. So people have been making synthetic DNA for 40 years using one chemistry. And on the left side, you'll see a plastic plate. And that is how most people make DNA. They make it in a 96-well plate, and they can make one gene at a time. So what we do in our secret sauce is that we have miniaturized the chemistry to make that DNA. So in the same space that other companies can make one gene, we can make 10,000. And by miniaturizing that chemistry, we actually reduce the amount of chemicals that are used by 99.8%. And for a harsh chemical that is used in the process, we reduce the amount used by 1,000,000-fold. So it's much more environmentally friendly to make the same product. So our customers are using our DNA to do amazing things. And so some of the things that they're doing is they're using our DNA to engineer E. coli or bacteria, algae, yeast, to make new plastics or new fragrances or flavors. You can think of things like perfume that use rose oil, and instead of destroying roses, you can actually make that synthetically. And so you're not destroying roses, you're not destroying vanilla plants. Vanilla is another thing that is made synthetically through synthetic DNA. Our customers are engineering bacteria that go at the root of plants, that sit at the base of plants. And you probably know that you use nitrogen-based fertilizers to make sure that plants grow. And the problem with nitrogen-based fertilizers is that they come from fossil fuels. And so they burn a lot of oil to get that fertilizer to put on the plants to make it grow. And so if you can actually engineer healthy bacteria to go at the root of plants, they can deliver the nitrogen naturally. You can also make new therapeutics, new tests, for lots of different diseases. We work with a number of different companies that are making therapeutics for cancer, tests for, we'll talk about COVID specifically, but tests for neurological diseases, or a single blood test to detect multiple cancers at the same time, so no biopsies. And that last column is called DNA data storage. And so we actually can store digital data in DNA. And it's much smaller. It stores for millions of years. And it does not take the energy that it takes to power a massive data center. And so again, it's much more sustainable than storing digital data the way we do now with Amazon Web Services or Facebook data centers or you name it. So we have 4 diverse businesses. And so we have the synthetic biology where we make genes, and so we make short pieces of DNA on that chip that I showed you. And those short pieces of DNA can become longer pieces that make a gene. We also make short pieces that go all together in a pool, and those are used to make specific tests, and that would be this next generation sequencing. We also have capabilities to discover new antibody therapeutics, and we talked a little bit about the data storage. The only piece that we plan to do in Wilsonville at this time is the synthetic biology piece. And so we'll make pieces of DNA that then get stitched together to make a gene. We'll make pieces of DNA that go together into a pool, and maybe you've heard of gene editing, CRISPR gene editing. That's really important to study disease and the functionality of what is happening in your body in a disease state. We also make libraries of DNA, and that's kind of a funny word, but there are a bunch of different sequences of DNA that allow our customers to discover new therapeutics. So these are the things we'll be doing in Wilsonville. There was some question around what we have done for COVID, so I'd like to address that forthright. And since COVID started, we have done a number of different things to fight COVID-19. The first thing we did is introduce something called synthetic controls. And so because we make DNA, you can think about a pregnancy test. And when you take a pregnancy test, when you pee on a stick, there's typically one line if you're not pregnant to tell you what the controls should look like, and there's 2 lines if you are pregnant. So you can compare, am I pregnant or am I not pregnant? That first line is really, really important. Otherwise, you're not sure if you're pregnant or not. If it doesn't show up, your control doesn't work. Because we make DNA, we can make controls for COVID, and that's what we do. So that was our first product for COVID, and we're able to make the COVID sequence. We don't have to make it in a high security lab because it's not alive. We are not working with the actual virus. We are just working with the sequence of DNA. So it saves researchers from working with a live virus in a biosecurity level 3 lab, which is the alternative to using synthetic RNA controls. So the positive controls tell you if the tests are working or not. And to date, we have worked with the CDC to supply their flu SB2 test, which tests for influenza A, B, and SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that leads to COVID-19. And those controls have been used to help 4 million people know that they have an accurate test to date. So those controls are incorporated in a number of different tests by different test providers. We're not the test provider. We provide the information to make sure the test is working. Another thing that we've done is when you take a COVID test, and most of us have probably taken a few, you get a yes or a no answer. You're positive or you're negative. And the way that those tests are created is so that that is the only information they provide. We have created something that allows researchers to determine the sequence of COVID. So it would tell me if I tested positive for COVID, which variant I have. So we've all heard a lot about the Delta variant recently. We're starting to hear about Lambda. We were hearing about Alpha and Beta. So, you know, it's really important to track that information to know what the virus is doing because every virus evolves. And so our panel allows researchers to track that viral evolution. It's a really important part of public health, knowing when to shut communities down, whether to reinstate mask mandates, or whether to remove them. So in addition to just COVID, we have a panel that if a person comes in and has a cough and has trouble breathing, not only does that replicate COVID-19 symptoms, it could be the flu, it could be another coronavirus, it could be RSV. There are a number of different diseases that present the same with respiratory symptoms, and this would allow the researcher to determine which disease that patient is suffering from to be able to treat it effectively. And finally, through our drug discovery group, we have identified some different monoclonal antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. So that is what we're doing for COVID. We have found that our customers are very appreciative of what we can do to keep their researchers safe so that they do not have to work with a live virus, and they get very effective results. So moving to the drug discovery piece for just a minute, there's a couple of different customers that are probably worth spending some time on. We're working with a large pharmaceutical company, Takeda, and what we're doing for them, they are working in oncology and neuroscience, rare diseases, and we're working with them to help them make better therapeutics and to make sure that they have fewer side effects and that they treat new diseases. On the right side, we're working with Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, and we started working with them in 2017, I believe, when they were granted some government money from DARPA. And at that time, DARPA had put in a mandate to identify, the program was called the Pandemic Prevention Platform, P3. They needed to go from pandemic outbreak, viral outbreak, to antibody therapeutic in 60 days. So this was pre-COVID. Not many people had heard the word pandemic. This was the only company that could supply the DNA that they needed to continue to go through their testing cycle to see if their antibodies were working. So we've been working with them on the pandemic. At the time COVID happened, Vanderbilt pivoted that program to COVID and their work to COVID, and so they now have a few antibodies going through clinical trials that we supplied the DNA for. So talking about DNA data storage, Twist is a pretty complex company, but it all comes back to the DNA. And so DNA is a code. It's A's, C's, T's, and G's. They're just 4 letters, that's it. And if we're thinking about digital storage in DNA, digital storage is also a code. It's zeros and ones. And so you can take the code of digital data, let's just say 00 is A, and 01 is G, and 10 is C, and 11 is T, and you can convert those into a DNA sequence. So the sequence of ACTG, or AGCT on the screen, is what we call a sequence, and we can essentially print that. We print the A first, the G second, the C third, the T fourth, and we print them like Lego blocks, just like stacking Lego blocks on a tower. And once we synthesize that, that is actually storing the data. To get that data back, you would take it out of the solution, you would sequence the DNA back, and we have lots of different machines that sequence DNA. It tells you what the sequence is and reads it out, and then you use your little code to decode in reverse order. So specifically in Wilsonville, there were some questions around the chemicals that are on site. We talked about the fact that we've reduced the amount of chemicals used to make DNA significantly. We do have a large tank. It is liquid nitrogen, as Chris said. We have both primary and secondary chemical containment. So we have a completely closed system. There is no chemicals escaping the system whatsoever. When we open up in Wilsonville, we'd love to give you a tour so that you can see what we call our writers. That's where we make the DNA. That's where the silicon chips sit in the machine, and it's completely enclosed in kind of a yellowy glass. It's to protect the DNA, not us. So the waste tanks are picked up and they're recycled and disposed of. It's very important to us that we keep our footprint as small as possible. And in terms of head count, we put together this chart because we've obviously done projections. Just want to talk you through that quickly. These are the grade levels of positions escalating up to the director level here at grade 9. So you can see at our fiscal year end in September, we anticipate having 185 jobs, and 52% of them will be at grade level 3. We do intend, so these compensation per head does not include stock-based compensation, which every employee that works for Twist is a shareholder in Twist. So we believe it's very important, whether we have hourly employees or salaried employees, that they are a part of our overarching mission and vision. And to do that, to incentivize them, they are shareholders. It matters. Another thing to note here is that we do intend to pay above the average salary, so for the graded position. We're super excited to come to Wilsonville. I have the privilege of doing PR for Twist, and so we've done a fair amount of outreach in the community through the Oregon Bioscience Association, through reporters in the area, the Wilsonville spokesperson, and we're excited to come. We're excited to be a member. We're excited to participate in the community, and we are sharing it with the world. So that's my little gig. It's a complex story. Hopefully I've been able to simplify it a little bit. And Chris, I think you did a pretty good job. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bitting. That was, I really appreciate that presentation and learning more about your company. And I'd like to ask our other counselors if they have any comments or questions. Councilor Lehan?
Well, I don't really have any questions at this point. I would like to watch it again because it had so much information in it, but I'm really excited about it. It sounds like an exciting new direction in many ways.
Thanks to our videotaping, we can watch it again.
And watch it again.
I think that is actually a really good idea. Anyone else have a comment?
I would. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was great. I have one question. So you will not be a level 3 or a level 4 biohazard. So I noticed that you send the chips to Vanderbilt, and their labs become a level 3 or a level 4. Is that correct?
No. So I know it's confusing. We don't send the chips anywhere. We keep the chips at Twist. We only send the DNA from the chips.
Okay.
And everything we make does not have to be in a BSL-3 lab. Only if you are working with live virus do you have to work in a BSL-3 lab. And so the amazing thing about working with synthetic DNA is that you don't have to do that. And there are only a few in the country, and they're hard to get access to. If part of the testing issue at the beginning of COVID was that there weren't the capability to make the tests with the controls because there were issues there getting into the BSL-3 labs. And so no, Vanderbilt, I do believe that they do have a BSL-3 lab because they work with a number of different viruses, but they don't have to work with our products in a BSL-3 lab.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
It's exciting.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to maybe go back to Mr. Papanek on the numbers that you presented, and I don't have that memorized either, but I wonder if you could just recap that the way, and maybe Mr. Namsu too. So the way this incentive works is it is only awarded after the fact, after a certain level of jobs have been put into place and have been underway, and a certain amount of economic activity has already taken place. And after that, a requisite amount of rebate or incentive is awarded. Is there a better way to say that? Recap that?
Yeah, we've been very intentional in using the term rebate, and Nick, you can jump in at any point here, of course, but the term rebate implies that they are paying their taxes up front, like we all do, on time, and that if they meet the performance standards identified in the win zone, which is the creation of the jobs, they provide documentation about creation of jobs. They provide receipts and actual invoices about the equipment and the value of the equipment, and the county assessor's office is involved in looking at the equipment and seeing the equipment and putting a value on the equipment, which is where all the value added is gained. So we come in after the fact, after all the performance has been done, and rebate those taxes. If the company goes out of business, leaves Wilsonville, the rebate is done at that point, and it doesn't carry forward. So there's really no risk because it's performance based. Nick, do I have that correct?
Absolutely correct. And not only is it a rebate, but it's a property tax rebate, and property taxes already have a sort of built-in delay in them. So construction that would take place in calendar year 22 would wind up being assessed by the assessor on January 1st of 2023 for the tax bill that comes out in October of 2023. So by the time Twist is even receiving a tax bill, it's already months after they've completed their investment, so the city has a chance to certify the amount of investment meets the criteria for the rebate. The employees have already been hired at that point in time, And then when that tax bill is received in October, those taxes can be paid throughout the rest of the fiscal year, going all the way through the following July. And it wouldn't be until after July, when that fiscal year is concluded, that the city actually is required to write that rebate check to Twist, based on all the taxes that are received over the duration of the fiscal year. And that gives plenty of time to the city to confirm that all of the requirements of the wind zone have been met.
Thank you. That answers my question. I am now fully locked into the intentional term of rebate for this. That says a lot. The other point that I think is really important is the level of investment that Twist Bioscience is putting into the facility. We looked at the footprint in a little diagram, and maybe I think it'd be interesting to just hear an overview of what those improvements are about. I know you've got a nitrogen tank and some other things, but it'd be great to hear a little overview of what that encompasses.
So Ms. Bidding, perhaps Mr. Wool and Mr. Romero, who you brought along, who are the project designers, they're intimately familiar with the operation of Twist, and this could be a great opportunity to bring them in.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't know, can you hear me? I'm going to let Paul do that. I'm actually the project manager on behalf of Twist. Paul is actually the lead designer.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to talk a little bit about it. So in the first phase 1A, there's a combination of office improvements, amenities for employees. There are some laboratory space, warehouse space, all geared really towards safety and employee benefit.
Thank you. Well, one of the unique, go ahead.
I'd like to answer for you.
I was going to say, one of the unique strengths of the city of Wilsonville is that we have a lot of really fascinating jobs. It's just a city of great jobs, and I think this sounds like another opportunity for some fascinating biotechnology, science-oriented jobs, and it's exciting. So I don't think I have any more questions.
Just to build on what you said there, one of the things that's so cool about Twist is that we have chemists, we have biologists, we have manufacturing associates, we have engineers, we have bioinformaticians, we have a number of different disciplines that have to come together to do the work that we do. It is multidisciplinary, and it works together for the greater good of improving healthcare and sustainability.
All right, well, thank you. Well, hearing no more questions for staff, I will call for the public testimony. And remember to state your name and address for the record and whether your testimony is in support, against, or neutral. And I do have one public speaker card here, Mr. Alexander Gilmore. If you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexander Gilmore. My address is as written on the speaker card submitted for the record. I am personally opposed to this because of this urban renewal proposal, and the reason is because there's many people like me who are young, who are dealing with community colleges who are closed for in-person learning, and it is difficult for us to get hired into the higher paying jobs if we cannot go to school and learn and get a degree so we can be hired into the higher paying jobs. Surely most of the people here tonight have probably seen the headlines where companies are struggling to find employees in skilled blue collar jobs, or some college educated jobs like STEM degrees and stuff. And it has been an absolute nightmare ever since the COVID pandemic has hit for college students to be able to learn in person. It hurts limits our ability to learn, and we cannot be employable without our community colleges being open for in-person learning. And it has been a very big struggle during the pandemic for me personally. It has disrupted my learning, and it's made it very hard. And so I'm opposed to any new proposals for spending by the city until we can get the community colleges reopened for in-person learning so people can actually get degrees, so we can be hired, and so that way we can grow the local economy. And to me, this is just the latest in all of the stuff that I've heard the city council do as a longtime resident who's lived here for roughly a decade. Ever since Mayor Fitzgerald was sworn into office, I have seen the city council get paid for the first time ever. I have not received any, or I should say very little money in the way of stimulus checks during the pandemic, and I have not had a reliable income. And I've also seen things like the pedestrian bridge. These are things that do not benefit me personally as somebody at my socioeconomic status who is a long-term resident of the city. And I believe that people like me need to be empowered to be able to have economic mobility through being able to earn a degree in STEM or in skilled blue-collar jobs where there is availability for us to find work. And so that way the local people who are looking to hire people here or to create jobs here, such as this company we've had here tonight and stuff, can find workers to be able to hire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I might just add a couple of comments there and ask the city manager if you might want to meet with Mr. Gilmore later on some points about how we work with our schools and our relationship with community colleges.
Sure.
We don't have a mechanism to pay for community colleges here, but really value our relationship with our schools, and there's quite a bit going that we've done for many years. And so your point about making sure people have education and are employable is a very high value for the city council. It has been for decades. So I think there's a little more to learn there, and I just hope that we keep improving our education, our job outlooks here. So is there any, and thank you for your testimony, seeing no more testimony, do any members of the council have any further questions for staff or any other party who testified before this public hearing is closed?
I'll say something really quick.
Sure.
Hi, I just want to thank you for your presentations. I didn't chime in earlier, but I just want to say I want to echo what the rest of the council and the mayor had said. I think it sounds like Twist's mission and how they operate their business aligns with our value system, and it is exciting to have a new partner in the city that provides living wage jobs to people, which is key, especially during these difficult times in 2020 and 2021 that we're facing. So thank you for your presentation, and as a city councilor, I'm sure the rest of the council, we look forward to partnering with you, so thank you.
Okay. Well, hearing...
Thank you. I look forward to the meeting.
Okay, hearing no further questions and everyone having testified, I hereby declare this public hearing closed. Do I have a motion on ordinance 849?
Your Honor, I move to adopt ordinance number 849 on first reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 849 on first reading. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
You want to do any discussion?
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just did mine.
Thank you. I have such a huge notebook here. I've been flipping back and forth between the pages.
It's 5 inches thick, I'm sorry.
Having no further discussion, I would like to call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 4-0. And that brings us to the city manager's business.
A few things tonight, Mayor, and we're wearing these masks, and it's always fun to sit in a room and try to breathe through these things and think and say, have come up with cogent thoughts. We're going to be doing some outreach to our various boards and commissions to see people how they're feeling about this, but I would be willing to ask you all tonight if you would like to go back to Zoom meetings for city council. We're certainly equipped to do that. I don't know how you feel individually about wanting to do that, but I think it's certainly something we could discuss tonight if you'd like to, because we are going to be doing that outreach to other boards and commissions. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you want to discuss it tonight, you can. If not, fine too.
Well, I spoke to the mayor earlier today, but I would be in favor of going back to Zoom, at least for the foreseeable future here into the fall, to see how things go. I have a member of my household on chemotherapy, and so I tried to be extra careful anyway, and it just seems like if the situation is serious enough, contagious enough that we all need to wear masks. Not that we aren't really attractive in these masks, but I'd just as soon stay on Zoom and be able to actually see faces than
well, you won't see ours.
No, I know but you're always itty bitty anyway.
Right, there you go.
But the people down there are usually, well, I guess they'd still be wearing masks too. But a lot of our speakers are coming in by Zoom anyway, and we can see them. But anyway, I would just as soon go back to Zoom while we're in full-on masks.
And I will comment, that was one of the other points that Councilor Lehan brought up was that, you know, we are, as Councilor Linville mentioned earlier about decision-making, we're making decisions for the greater good of the community for the longest period of time for the most people. We want to hear from the community, and we want them to, you know, just be a part of this. And it just cuts down on our communication ability to have these masks. So that's one thing that I think cuts down. I find running the meetings from my dining room table on Zoom to be quite challenging, but I figured it out. I'll do it again, but at least you can breathe.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Councilor Linville.
I agree. As long as we have an indoor mask mandate, I would suggest, I would appreciate going back to Zoom. And I think it is a communication issue with our public. Just being able to see our faces and to be able to communicate. I don't think it allows for us to have the kind of expression that I think is helpful in our roles as counselors. So I would support that as well.
I haven't checked in with Councilor Ackerval, and I certainly want to hear what Councilor West has to say on the subject.
I'm willing to go along with the rest of the council wants to do. I'm fine either way. I think us meeting in person and seeing people is great once it is inhibited by the barrier on our face.
I agree.
It is great to be back in council. I don't necessarily, it's not only my professional opinion, but my personal opinion too, that these meetings are also safe. How the city has always conducted itself during the pandemic has been safe by the best guidance possible. We also do have a couple council members that have extenuating family circumstances, and that's to be, and I care about that. I care about what they have to go through, their family and their comfort level. And as a team, we should all care about that. So whatever the team decides, I will agree to.
And maybe things will improve. I hope things improve soon. And with regard to our schools and our businesses, I can't tell you how much I want this to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a consensus that maybe going back to Zoom, at least until we know what happens with this Delta variant and when that's going to peak.
And the Lambda variant.
And the Lambda and the Alpha and the Omega and everything else.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah. So I think we will plan then, based on what I've heard, to go back to Zoom meetings, at least for city council. obviously the chambers will be open to the public as well. So we already have the hybrid model in place. So we will plan on seeing you from your Zoom screens at the next meeting.
Now, there's a block party, is that still on?
Yeah, that was on my list, yes. That's Thursday, August 26th, which is also Women's
Suffrage Day.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to get my, what are they called?
These are cockades.
Okay.
What time is the block party?
It starts at 5:30. So we'll have live music and some food trucks, and so please come and participate if you're in town.
It's this Thursday?
It's August 26th.
It's August.
While you're
30.
While you're on the city manager report, I do want to note for the public again, the extensive city manager report, which we didn't get to go into today, but
Once a
it
month.
bears reading.
If you want to know what's going on in the city, or at least, yeah, it's in there for you. I have one other issue I want to bring to your attention. I met with Oregon City Police Chief Jim Band, our chief Rob Werps, myself, and Ms. Troja, and there's a lot of cities having conversations and taking action on the issue of mental health and outreach to the homeless. Some cities have already started taking some action on this by hiring their own coordinator. I have a gentleman from Gresham that I'm trying to get to come to city council to talk about how they handle that issue. I just think it's something we need to think about, and I have maybe a proposal I want to bring back to council, and maybe we hire our own person to do that outreach. Rob has some information and data that he would like to share with council on the number of mental health calls that the police department handles. So the Oregon City model is one that looks like it has some promise. So I just want to kind of tease that to you as something I'd like to bring to you in the near future to talk about how maybe we could use some of that ARPA funding to fund a position for up to 3 years on that. So I just want to let you know that we're thinking about that, and we'll be bringing something to you in the near future. And then you mentioned your training. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, Fire to Eden's Gate. It's a great book on how Oregon's land use planning system got into place. It's basically a biography of Tom McCall.
Oh.
And Charbonneau is one of the reasons why Senate Bill 10 came to fruition. So I think the quote from him is, he got tired of seeing the sagebrush subdivisions, coastal condominium, and the ravenous rampages of suburbia. And that last one is directly related to Charbonneau. That is a wonderful book. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it to you.
If Charbonneau had been placed on the other side of the river,
Yeah.
in the same community, same configuration, I think it would not have been a problem. But there was nothing else there, and so.
Well, our former governor was not a fan of growth in general, so.
Well, yeah, it was, it is the good and the bad of it. Without Charbonneau on the south side, we probably wouldn't have Oregon land use planning.
Correct.
We wouldn't have Senate Bill 100, and who knows what.
He drove by it on his way to the Capitol.
Would have happened, so.
Any other city?
That's it, I'm sorry, thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was, we're having book recommendations.
That is a great one.
I would like to ask our city attorney if there's any legal business.
No, Your Honor, no.
Can you text me the
I will.
name of that
I'm
author?
now I will adjourn the meeting of the city council at 8:56.
See you